Okay, for our next major studio project, we're going to be doing a digital painting. So we're going to be using a platform called Pixlr, and that's Pixlr.com. I'm going to log out so that you can see how to actually log in. So I put in my school email, I made a password. You can have it be, remember you if you want. And I'm logging in. I'm not paying for anything, but just to kind of track what I'm working on. So I'm going to hit login. And I'm going to do a playful Pixlr example. So I'm going to click on this button right here. I'm going to go to Create New. And I'm just going to do a full HD. So this one right here. And I'm going to call it Digital Painting. And hit Create. I'm going to import a photo. So I'm going to add an image. Now I can browse my computer and pull in one of my own pictures. I can find one from a website and bring it in this way, or I can choose a stock photography, which stock basically means that it's made by people who go around and do photographs professionally, and then they sell them, and they'll have a whole database of images that you can pull from. So I'm going to choose a stock photograph. And let's see, I'm going to type in, let's see, sunset. And let's see what comes up. So I'm going to choose one that I really love. Let me look and see. I want to make sure it's something I really like because I'm going to be working with this picture for a while to make it really interesting and to paint over it. Ooh, I love all these colors here. I think I'm going to go with this one. And I'm going to add it to my current one that I just opened. So add current. Give it a second to do it. All right, so we brought in this scene here. And let's see, I'm going to go onto a new layer, and I'm just going to kind of play around with some of the colors that I see. You can move the picture around. This is a really big image. So I think I want to resize it. So I'm going to find the corner of my image, always drag it from the corners, and I'm going to make it smaller so I can see the whole thing. So I'm going to drag it down, keep making it smaller. Oh, that's pretty good. I can see almost the whole thing here. And as I'm working, I'm going to zoom into it at some points. So it doesn't really make a difference. I just want to be able to see the whole picture on my screen. Okay. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make some layers. So I'm going to have my picture on the bottom, and then I'm going to paint on top of my picture. So I'm going to make some layers over here, and I'm going to just say they're empty layers. And I'm going to do, let's see, one for my sky, one for my land, maybe one for my trees. All right, and I want to have my picture at the bottom, and these empty layers are on top. So I've got 4 empty layers that I can work with. So the first one I'm going to start with is this empty layer right on top, and I'm going to start figuring out what colors are in my background, and then kind of zoom in and paint on top of them with a paintbrush. So let me kind of go over here in this area. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to hold my space bar down. See the little hand shows up when I hold my space bar, and I'm going to move over. And I think I'm going to start up at the top. All right, I'm going to come over to the drawing tool. It looks like a little paintbrush. You have the option to use a paintbrush, to erase something, to use a pen tool, or to draw shapes. I'm going to work with the paintbrush tool. Now, none of these colors match exactly what I need here. I'm going to choose a color. I'm just going to click on it. But then right down here, there's an eyedropper. The eyedropper tool is going to be my best friend for this painting project because I'm going to click on my eyedropper, figure out what color is there, and then I'm going to paint on top. And I'm just doing short, quick little lines. But look, now the color is starting to change. So I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to choose over here. And then I'm going to get my new color. And I'm going to go my eyedropper tool, choose up here, and get this color up here. And you can see I'm just doing short strokes, kind of like the post-impressionist Vincent van Gogh, how he has short little brush strokes of color. So I'm going to keep working. And this little crosshair, the little plus symbol that you see next to the circle, is where I'm choosing from. So I'm clicking there, choosing that color, and then coming in and drawing. So whenever I start to really notice a difference, I'm going to come back over here, choose that new color, and then kind of blend it in. Come up here. And I can really see a difference now. Once I start to see that difference, come over and choose a new color so you can blend into it. So I'm just choosing new colors and blending in, okay? And again, if something stands out, come back in and choose a different color from your background. So you can see I've done this whole area here. Once I do an area, I'm going to come back through and I'm going to play around with this liquefy tool. So I can push my colors in one direction or another direction. I can swirl my colors. Do you see what's happening? I'm clicking and holding. See how it's swirling it? I can swirl in the other direction. I can enlarge it. I can push it around. And so it's almost like I'm pushing paint around here to kind of mix the two colors together. Right? And kind of playing around with the swirls, moving all the colors around. Now, ultimately, what you want to do is have your whole picture painted on top of. And kind of blend the colors into one another. If I hold it there, that's when I get that big swirl. I can move that swirl around and pull it in different directions. Do all kinds of stuff, right? So let me zoom back out. So you can see the area that I worked on right here, right? If I hit this little checkbox, I can turn off my picture. That doesn't make the picture like go away permanently. It just temporarily like makes it not visible. So if I turn this off, that's how much of my picture I have painted. Okay, so I'm going to do more of this picture. I'll let you watch for a few minutes and then I'll skip to the end so you can see what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, so maybe I'll zoom into another area. I'll zoom in over here, hold down my space bar to get that little hand, zoom in, and I'm going to focus on this area now. Now I've got some different colors happening in here, but I have a lot of orange right in here. So I'm going to come through with my orange. So I'm going to choose my brush tool. I'm going to start with orange, but I'm actually going to come in with my color picker and choose that color. You can resize your brush too. If you want it to be smaller, like super small, you can come in here and do super small ones, or you can make it really big. I would not recommend this because it's really too big. You really don't want to go, I would say, above, let's see what 300 looks like. So I'm going to choose a color. I'll choose this color right here. Yeah, so that's huge. You do not want to do 300. I would stick around maybe 40 pixels. So I'm going to undo. So right at the bottom here, it says undo. I'm going to take that out. So let's go back. Let's choose this color here. Yeah, I would say no smaller than like maybe 16. No bigger. I mean, I wouldn't go any bigger than like 100. So don't go super big because then you're not going to be able to get all of your interesting colors in here and you're not going to be able to get your details. So the smaller you go with your brush size, the more details you can include. So I'm going to come over here. And remember, this little plus sign is where I can get my color. So that's too big, right? Because it's going to go into my blue. So I need to definitely make that smaller. I'm going to come through and get some of this pink. And sometimes you can't even tell where the color is going because it's so close to what's underneath. And that's exactly what you want. You want to make it so that it's tricky to figure out where you're working at, that you have to turn off your picture and see. So if I turn off my picture, I can see, okay, wow, I've got some huge gaps in here. So I've got to fill in these gaps. So I'm going to come back through. Right here was a gap. And where else? Kind of just in general in between. So I've got this little area done. I'm going to come through with my liquify tool. And again, I can make my liquify bigger if I want to. I can do the strength bigger. I can play around with density. I can move the different directions. But I'm just going to kind of push and pull it to fill in these areas. Dragging it one direction, drag it another direction. Just kind of making it interesting, like the way that I would like move paint around with different colors. And then I'm gonna come through and I really like those swirls, so I'm gonna do a couple swirls. And remember, you can go in different directions. And then if you like the swirls, you can keep them. If you don't, you can push them around and do other things with them. Right, I'm just kind of blending those colors. Let's see if that area is filled in. Almost all of it. So I have a little bit of an area here. I can do this without my picture. Now, what's risky is I wouldn't do this for too much of an area because you don't want to cover up an area by accident without looking at your picture. Right, so I'm still pretty close to where all the colors are in my picture. Then I can start to bring in some of my other colors. So down here, I've got some blue. So I'm going to come in with some blue to start. But again, I'm using my eyedropper to match it because it's all different shades, right? These are all purples over here. This is a light blue. And you can see it takes a minute to try to figure out what your color is, to come back through, then to blend it out. And if it starts to look really noticeable, go back in and adjust it. Keep your brush strokes kind of short. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm kind of blending one color into another color. I think for this assignment, you really do need to have something with some interesting colors that you like looking at, because it's not going to be fun to do something like this if you don't even like the colors. Like if you hate the color red and the picture you chose is all red, that's not going to work. So make sure that you choose a picture that you like, and it can be a picture that you already have. I think it's easy to do this with a landscape. I do not think I would do this with a portrait unless I know that I have time to really go in and match every detail. Because it can be with a portrait, you're going to have a super tiny brush to do everything. And if it's not on point with a face, you can tell right away if it doesn't look right. So you've got to make sure that you are matching everything precisely with a super small brush. So that's why for this assignment, I think it's easiest for us if you choose something like that's a simple landscape that has like maybe a nice sunset or, a jungle scene or you know, you went to the zoo, maybe you could do an animal if you wanted to. I have seen people do this with cars, but again, a car is also something really detailed. So you wouldn't want to go in with such a big brush. You definitely want to have something a lot finer with a lot more detail and a much smaller brush. So you can see I'm just going through, I'm picking out my color, coming in with a few lines, coming back through with my other color, then a few more. And at first it looks kind of like blocky, right? It's hard to really tell what's going on. But I'm going to come back through and then I'm going to liquefy it and kind of play around with those colors. Okay, so this whole area here, I just did, let's double check. I turned off my check. Okay, so you can see, I have little gaps everywhere. But this is a perfect time to come over with my liquefy tool. And I'm going to push things around, push the colors this way, push the colors that way, and just fill in some of these areas with the colors that I already have. And the idea is to use the picture as your reference point, and then you can kind of get creative. If you want, like the colors don't have to be exactly like in the same spot. Like I'm kind of generally looking for where the colors are. And then I'm just kind of blending. You can see I'm clicking like crazy. I'm trying to blend one color into another one. Because we're doing a free one, we have these ads that pop up. You just have to X them out to close them. But look at how I'm just taking that color and I'm just moving it around to make a picture. But it takes time. So I want you to start on this project as soon as you can so that you have plenty of time to work on it. So you can see how I blend these colors together. Put some of these down. See that little gap there. I'm just trying to fill in everything that I can. Turn on my, and see, it still fits in. It's just like more blocky with the color. So you can see I did this area up here and I did this area right here. Okay. Now, when it comes to the bottom of my picture, I've got a nice dark picture. You can choose whatever picture you want. Okay. So you do not have to choose my picture. Choose whatever you like. It's up to you. But here I can come back in, and for this, I've got really small trees. So I think I would do something super small. Like I'm going to come all the way down to 4 pixels, and I'm going to choose my color here and just do a really small tree on top here. I'm going to make my trees they're separate, their own layer, and then do like a trunk here. I'm going to go around these trees and kind of fill it in. Go around the shrub. Go around the shrub. So you can't really see what I'm doing, but I am kind of drawing around these individual shapes. Right? And when I turn off my picture, you can see the shapes that are here. Now I can go back in and fill those in later, but I have the rough outline of where my picture is, of where my trees are, so that I have that almost like tracing over the picture, right? So I know from here down, this is all black, or it looks like black. Let's see what color it actually is. This is showing up as a really dark blue. See, it's like here's the blues. So if I try to match down here, looks like it's got a lot of different colors in there, but mostly like a super dark green and dark blue. So I'm gonna come in, I know this is like super big down here. See, I can get a bigger brush and just fill in this whole bottom area because it's all one color. And then I can come up to here. I don't want to get rid of my trees, So I gotta be careful when I get up on the top. And you can see when I turn off my picture, see I filled in this area, and then I can go back in and fill in my trees more. Okay, so this is my picture layer on the bottom. This is my sky layer right here. This is my tree layer. And if I had something else, I'd put it on a different layer. That's why I made a couple layers to start. Okay, I'm gonna turn my picture back on. I'm gonna pause the video and then I'm gonna get more of this done and then show you what a finished digital painting would look like. And again, for your project, you're gonna choose whatever image you like, school appropriate. But I would highly recommend doing something with colors that you like. I think it's easy to do a landscape, but if you want to try to do a portrait, you can. If you want to try to do something like a car or an animal or something like that, you can do that too. Just keep in mind that you should try to change your file or your brush size based on what you're working on. Okay, so look at the details. If it has a ton of really small details, use a small brush. Okay, so make sure you change the size. And again, you're going to do the same thing. You're always going to click on this little eyedropper, find your color. So find your color that you're looking for, then click on it, then come back through with your brush tool. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead so you can see what this looks like when I'm all done. And then I'll show you like the finished piece and how I would save it and turn it in. Okay. Okay, so here's like a midway point. You can kind of see I filled in a lot of this. I'm going to come back through and kind of push the color around and to kind of fill in some of those gaps. Because I don't want to see the background through it. I want my whole picture to be painted over. So wherever I have gaps, I'm just moving the paint around to fill in the gaps. And remember, don't forget you can come over and use like the twirl one. You want to twirl it. If you want to twirl bigger, you can go like really big with it. Right? So if you're wanting to do that, I think that's too much for me. I don't like it. But I'm going to come back through and just keep pushing it around because I prefer that. And just kind of going back and forth. I'm going one direction, then going another. Because I don't want to have one area really overtake another area. I still want them to kind of blend a little bit. So I'll kind of pull the one color one way and then push it back the other direction to kind of fill in those gaps. And you can see I drew my trees down at the bottom here. They look kind of shaky still. I still have to go back in and fill them in. But I got at least my outlines down there ready to go. All right, and I'll come back when I'm all the way done so you can see it finished. Okay, so you can see my more finished picture here. I'm going to come back through and do some more darkening of my trees. So I'm going to make some smaller sizes, go back in, and I just want like the silhouette of the trees, so I'm just going to fill in some of these shapes so the trees aren't see-through because I don't want see-through trees. So I'm just going in and kind of adding this little detail until I'm kind of happy with how it looks like at the very end, because these are just little silhouettes down here. I think I'm all right with that. All right, now I'm gonna save. So I'm gonna hit save. And it's called my digital painting. I'm gonna save it as a JPG. That'll make it easier for me later on. Just as far as like uploading things, right? So JPG or JPEG is a file format that's easily recognizable for a lot of different things. So it doesn't have to be like the very best quality. I can go down a little bit so the file size isn't huge. And then I'm going to hit download. And it is downloading to my computer. So when you're working on yours, make sure you download it, okay? And then you'll go to Google Classroom. So we'll go to Google Classroom. I'll go to this class. So let's say I'm in Painting 2. I'll go to classwork and then I'll turn it in and I'll upload it. Okay, so that's the way that you will save your work and then turn it in. So you'll save it, download it as a JPG or JPEG, okay? And then you'll turn it in. So I'm gonna give you until the end of the marking period to get your digital painting done. Try to do something that's within reason that you can get done in the time frame. This one took quite a long time because it's got a lot of colors going on in the top, but you don't have to do something that's as colorful or as detailed, okay? So if you think that it's too tough, it's going to take you longer until like you won't be able to be done by October 30th, then maybe choose something a little bit simpler to do, okay? So play around with Pixlr.com. Make sure you log in with your school ID. You are using the play one, so you're playing around with it. You're going to find an image from the stock photos, or if you want to bring in one of your own images, you're welcome to do that. You should have multiple layers. So add layers. Remember to add layers by putting the plus. One layer should be your background picture, which you can't see anymore because I painted on top of it. And then you should have your other layers. And I kind of separated out some of my sky and then some of my trees. They're on multiple layers. That way I can do one without affecting the other one, okay? So then make sure you save it when you're all done and then download it as a JPG to your desktop, to your computer, Chromebook, whatever you're working on, and then upload it and turn it in, okay? This is what I want you to take your time with, but I want you to have it done before the end of the marking period, which is October 30th, okay? We'll have maybe one or two other assignments that relate with this, but nothing as intense as focusing on this project to work on. Okay, so if you have questions as you're working on this, let me know. I'm happy to help. Make sure you watch the video to help you through the whole process, okay?